Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so kind of been quiet today. Stayed in the house, did my thing here, enjoyed some music, enjoyed some meditation, all the different stuff. But I did want to turn on the camera today and just say hello to everybody. Talk that Laker talk if I can. So, the Stephen A. Smith thing with LeBron James. I saw that occurrence last night after the game. It took place somewhere in the third quarter, from what I understand, or at least people have come to the conclusion based on the surroundings of the circumstance of when it took place. That's my understanding. He confronted Stephen A. Smith, had a few words, and essentially what it was alleged was that, or what was said, was that he told Stephen A. Smith to leave his son out of all things in regards to these conversations about him. You know, don't leave my son out of this stuff. I'm only going to tell you once, leave my son out of this stuff, is what they said, he said. And it wasn't supposed to be something that we all saw. But of course, if you're going to do something in public and your name is LeBron James, then obviously you're going to be expected to be recorded, especially at a Laker game. So to say that we weren't supposed to see it is kind of ridiculous in some ways, because, you know, first of all, nobody goes to a Laker game and isn't seen. Second of all, it's a Laker game with the Knicks. And it's LeBron James talking to Stephen A. Smith. So, you know, we're talking about two of the more famous people on the planet. Stephen A. Smith just signed a $100 million contract. Congratulations to him. That's massive. I know how much that means to him. And, you know, I've been watching him for years, so I really appreciate what he's done for the sports media sphere, you know what I mean? And so that's something that I wanted to say before we get into any other conversation. But, you know, just the same, this coming out on that same day felt like it could have been a little orchestrated, to be honest with you. I also felt like LeBron James' point of view was directed at Stephen A. Smith, but because it was done in public, it was probably meant for everybody. And that's what I think also. It was personalized towards Stephen A. Smith, but please don't think he was excluding anybody else. He wanted us all, everybody who talks about him, to leave his son out of the bullcrap. And that's exactly the message that came my way. He wasn't just talking to Stephen A. He was talking to everybody else too. And, you know, it's one of those situations where it's like, look, man, I definitely think that we have to be honest and fair and say that none of this is done in private. Just like the conversation he had with Stephen A. Smith wasn't done in private, so too was your son's relationship with the sport of basketball. It's not done in private. So if you want the talking heads not to talk about it, you're being a little unfair. If you want the talking heads to not talk about your son's in the NBA. Your son is now a player in the NBA. So, you know, I don't know that LeBron James not right for confronting Stephen A., but I don't know if Stephen A. was the guy to confront, if that makes any sense. In the conversations that I heard Stephen A. talk, Stephen A's been, what I think has been pretty damn fair. He's been critical of LeBron James placing his son on the spotlight when he appears he wasn't ready to ball. I think that that's a very fair take for a guy like Stephen A. Smith with a big platform and voice. He's essentially saying, you put your son out there, bro, and we want to see your son succeed, but you know what they're going to say about your son. If anything, I thought his point of view was a lot more favorable than most of the others that I had been hearing as it pertains to talking about Bron James. Stephen A. may have the biggest voice, but he also probably had the more respectful of voices in regards to what it is I've listened to. And I've listened to him talk about Bron James a few times, and I've also heard him say he wanted to avoid talking about Bron James more than anybody else said it. So that's why it made me feel like he was talking to Stephen A., but he was addressing everybody who does this. And that furthermore made me feel like this could have been potentially orchestrated by both of them. But Stephen A. Smith is in agreement that LeBron James should tell talking heads not to use me as a means of doing so at the Laker game. We'll get that message out. That's what that felt like to me. I felt like they were both in agreement that this needed to be done. And, you know, I also think that LeBron James did the right thing in doing it in person. You know, if something's done in public and if something's done as while everybody's watching, so should what else is occurring in regards to it if you're going to oppose the energy that's coming your way. If you felt disrespected in public, defending yourself in public is fair game, in my opinion. And I thought that in Stephen A's response I was listening to today, he was essentially saying LeBron has my number, his people have my number. But I've also heard Stephen A say on multiple occasions in regards to different conversations that I be going to games people can come to me and see about me. So I felt like that would be something that Stephen A would respect, not necessarily provide a different approach. I understand how it looks when somebody who's as big and powerful as LeBron James is approaching you, standing over you this damn close. It can be embarrassing, but this is the energy that Stephen A has welcomed on many occasions as it pertains to other conversations. I be at these games, you can come talk to me. Well, somebody was listening, his name was LeBron James, and that's exactly what he did. So sometimes we got to be careful what we ask for if we're not going to appreciate it when it come our way. I found in my life that I've gotten more respect talking directly to people in their face than I have in regards to any other method of conversation as it pertains to myself and another man. That's what I've found. Anytime I had conversations where I had to straighten things out or have uncomfortable conversations that were best in person. Now, that doesn't mean it's always going to go well. Sometimes those situations can end in violence, and I respect that. Luckily enough, in all of my situations, they never did. But I've been the type of guy, and I can think of 2 occasions specifically, where I set a man down, say, look, this is what's going on. This is what I don't want to see happen. This is what I do. This is what I'm trying to accomplish, and I don't want any wavering in regards to what you may think in regards to me when it comes to what we're talking about here. I've done that twice, and it went well twice. So that's what I respect. It ain't the easiest thing in the world. You know what I mean? It requires a whole lot of strength, mental strength to do it. And I commend LeBron James for approaching Stephen A. Smith. He didn't look all that comfortable at doing that. But at the same time, it's like, when it comes to defending your family, if all things are equal, that's something that a man is going to feel he needs to do. Not only as it pertains to respecting the honor of his last name and his son, but also easing the mind of his wife. So that is what I think LeBron James is ultimately trying to accomplish there. And, I didn't know if Stephen A. Smith was the most egregious of people in regards to this conversation. But other than that, I thought it was very appropriate. If you want to get the word out that you don't like people talking about your son, you pick the biggest and brightest stage, talk to the biggest name and biggest face, and you say it in front of everybody. So I thought that was what LeBron did. It was a demonstration of intent, pointed at Stephen A., but more so intentional in communicating to everybody else. And furthermore, with that being the case, I just don't know if it's all that fair. I just don't know that it is. Bronny is a grown man. Bronny is a basketball player. Bronny is a basketball player who came out of college, drafted in the second round, playing for the Los Angeles Lakers, having gotten basically a 4-year contract as a second round back of the draft guy. That's not something that's going to happen very much. Nepotism is in play. And when nepotism is in play, you're creating a target for people to communicate what they feel, not only as it pertains to the resentment in the nepotism, but also as it pertains to the criticism of the young man in this play. You open the door for that by going about it this path, this way. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have us watch you do something that ain't going to be necessarily fair for anybody else to try to accomplish. They can't do that. And then expect people not to use their voice in whatever way they feel as it pertains to the subject that may not be possible for other people. You know what I mean? And so that's my point of view. LeBron James has flexed a great deal of power and muscle to assure that his son got this opportunity. When you do that, there's going to be some people who are going to resent that for good reasons and bad ones. And when that comes around, you got to take what come with that. You got to take what come with that. Otherwise, you take the proper route so that it is not possible that people do this. But because LeBron is about the brand of his whole brand everything that he does, just like it's always been since he was 15 years old, has to be public, has to be big, has to be extravagant. All right, so is the criticism that comes with it. And while you may be able to receive that when it comes to you, you can't draw the line at your son when you put your son in the same spotlight as you. You know what I mean? So it's like I agree with Stephen A. Smith when he said you put your son out there and you know what they're going to say. And I think that was a fair criticism. I thought that LeBron James pointing that at Stephen A., if it wasn't all of that other stuff that I'm, conspiracy theories that I think may be possible, if it was just him coming up to a man saying, yo, I don't appreciate this, I don't think that was the worst. I don't think he was the worst one talking. I definitely don't. They had a lot more people who said a lot worse things about Bronny James than Stephen A. I thought Stephen A. had been rather fair and rather careful not to have angered you in this way, more so than most, in my humble opinion. And it's one of those situations where it's like, look, I'm glad it didn't come to fisticuffs. I would hate to see LeBron James and all of his power put his hands on Stephen A. I don't believe that would be anywhere close to a fair fight. I think that would be the worst look for LeBron James. I think he would be sued for mountains of money. It would just not go well for Bron if he were to do that. But I thought the way that he handled it was respectful. You show up to a man, you stand your ground, you tell him what you have to say, you walk away. You make him understand that you're serious. I get it. And Stephen A. had to address it this morning. I'm sure he's not happy about that. I'm sure he's going to have some resentment about that. If this wasn't some grandiose, demonstration by the both of them. So that's really what it is, man. Toes were stepped on yesterday. Some lines were drawn. It's what it seemed like. But at the end of the day, LeBron James, when you're going to throw your son out there in some fashion that is known as nepotism, you got to expect that your son's going to take some unfair criticism to match that unfair nepotism, dog. It just come with it. You can't be unfair when it comes to people not just, tiptoeing around all of this. That's not in everybody's best interest to just tiptoe around that. Sometimes it's best to if you're trying to gain momentum for your platform, to pick that subject out and talk about it more than anything else. And I personally think Bronny James has handled this very well. I don't imagine Bronny James is going to stand up for himself, go up to Stephen A. Smith, say, leave me out of it. I doubt he would feel that would be something he could do. But at the end of the day, he is a grown man. You told us that yourself, Bron. He's just a grown man. So at some point in time, Daddy can't fight his battles just the same. And look, the criticism is in place. So too will be the praise when he plays well, and he's starting to play well. He's starting to play well in the G League, and I think he's going to gain more confidence in basketball as he continues to play. So when the criticism comes, you ain't going to be walking up to people telling them to shut up then. You're going to want them to talk all day about your son. So it's like you got to take the good with the bad, just like you do with yourself. You got to take it for your son. You know what I mean? And so that's my point of view. I think that there have been people who've been extremely critical. Maybe don't have as big a voice, but they've been mighty critical, and some have been somewhat disrespectful. But just like everything else, if they don't have a big enough voice, nobody cares. But some of the stuff that I'm hearing is just downright disrespectful. So that's really what it comes down to. Bron ain't about to approach the people who've been most disrespectful. He's just going to come to the guy with the biggest voice, who's probably arguably been the most respectful, which is someone very unfortunate in this. And then there's an element in this conversation that is going to always be an elephant in the room. And this is a black man approaches another black man about something, any damn thing, in the presence of everybody, all colors. And the question that I think is going to be asked, or maybe I'm the only one who's going to ask it, and maybe I'm not fair for asking it, but do you walk up to a white man and do this, LeBron? Do you have that same energy for some of those who would say things about your son and they ain't black? See, we always feel so embracing to communicate sternly toward one another. But maybe not someone else of a different color. And that is always going to be an elephant in the room when you see circumstances like these, demonstrations like these. We're quick to be stern with one another, violent with one another. harsh of one another, critical of one another, but never the other brother. And that to me is worth saying here. It's worth it. But that's because I think it speaks to a demonstration of timidness as it pertains to the criticism of those we may deem higher than us. And maybe not for the right reasons. Maybe for traumatic reasons that have to do with slavery and different things. We don't criticize them, but we'll criticize the hell out of one another. We'll stand firm and call them sir, but when it comes to one another, we call us bro. It's like at some point in time we got to realize as long as we do that to one another, we ain't never going to be elevated in a space where we can see people eye to eye with confidence. We got to start addressing others the same way we would address ourselves, or with the same respect that we would address others, we need to address one another. And that is something that I think with the platform of Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James is very important. Because there's many people watching. And in the presence of what it is I'm paying attention to in life, there's a lot of people who ain't black who need to be held accountable for things by black people. And we ain't addressing them. We ain't coming to it because they got too much power, because they don't, we don't feel as confident and all this other stuff. We don't think they understand us, or whatever the case. And if we're going to address one another with a certain level of sternness and demonstration and look to belittle or embarrass or put someone in their place, you better keep that same energy with people that don't have the same color of your race. Because that's a demonstration, and we need to start doing a bit more and a bit more confidence involved. If we're going to elevate out of the status that we've been in the past, no matter how much money we get, it starts here. So I think that's very important. As a black person, I think that's extremely important. So I'm not unhappy. You got to address who's in front of you. You got to, you know what I mean? I get it. There's a lot of good things about what LeBron did. But at the end of the day, there's room for this conversation in a different route. And that's exactly what I bring to the table, man. So that's really what I'm here to say. I'm not mad at nobody. I don't, you know what I mean? LeBron James' son deserves to be defended. He's a good kid, developing basketball player. Seems like he has a great character. He definitely deserves to have his father come to his defense in circumstances. He's still young, you know what I mean? It's not like he's in his 30s or nothing like that. But at the same time, he is grown in the eyes of the present public. And we got to acknowledge that his dad is fighting that battle for him. Just as he got him into the league. So, all is fair, man. We got to consider these things. And I think LeBron James, at the end of the day, he's trying to be a good dad. You carry the weight of the world on your shoulders when you're somebody like LeBron. You can't do everything, you can't check every box. You just got to do it the best you can. And I get that too. It is what it is, man. So that's what I wanted to address, man. It wasn't nothing about the team, really. I just wanted to talk about this LeBron James, Stephen A. Smith thing. Bring up some points that maybe no one else has said. Maybe some others have. I don't know. I ain't been listening to everybody's commentary on this conversation. But, I just think at the end of the day, LeBron put his son out here. You put him out here, bro. You shoved him into the league. You gave him the 4-year deal. You use your leverage to do it. Hey, man, people going to have something to say about it, bro. And that's just what it is. Video 44. I thank y'all for watching.